anybody who works in the world of digital creativity, Adobe is the bedrock to bring bold ideas to life. Meet the man who brought Adobe's ideas to life, transforming the company into an engine that powers our creative workflows with tools like Photoshop, Premiere, Illustrator, and After Effects, among others. Be it for enterprise teams or for the lone-ranging freelance artist. Shantanu Narayen has been at Adobe for nearly 3 decades, and as its CEO for the last 17 years, he's piloted its transition from the early internet decade to cloud and now generative AI. A self-confessed cricket fan who would trade sleep to follow the Indian cricket team, Narayen moved to the US nearly 4 decades ago and has stood witness to the greatest technological revolutions of our time, not only at Adobe, but also in the Silicon Valley. With Shantanu Narayen at Adobe's world headquarters in California's Bay Area, where better to kick off the 2024 edition of the Young Turks' Voices from the Valley. The 10th edition of Voices from the Valley. I'm Shireen Bhan, and what an honor it is to bring you our first edition here at the Adobe campus with Shantanu Narayen. Shantanu, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here on Voices from the Valley. It's great to have you back on the program.
Well, congratulations on 10 years, Shireen, and welcome to Adobe. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, but let me start by talking to you about what's going on at Adobe. Shantanu, you've delivered, in your own words, an outstanding quarter in Q2, beating all estimates, record revenue coming in. What's the most exciting aspect of FY24 for you at this point in time?
Well, I think the product innovation that we're delivering, Shireen, it always, warms your heart when you look at the amount of innovation that we're delivering. And I think we've talked about this in the past. AI is going to be this incredibly enabling technology that allows us to, target a broader set of customers. And so I guess it's the era of AI.
It is the era of AI. And, you talked about how you believe AI is going to be an enabler. And there's 2 sides of the story that we're seeing play out. One, in your words, the acceleration of technology and the democratization of technology. And the other, what is it going to mean for humanity? But on the enabling front, for a company like Adobe, I remember in your earnings call, I think David Wadhwani said that, FY23 was sort of the starting point and this is going to be the year of production. So explain to me what that means from an Adobe perspective.
Well, if you take a step back first, the reality is that, what computers do really well is they pattern match. And, when you can automate tasks or when you can get a computer to interpret what you're trying to do, and do it on your behalf, then magic happens. And if you look at our different businesses, on the creative side, we always say everybody has a story to tell. And AI will enable you to jumpstart that ideation process as well as automate the inefficient parts, whether it's video creation or image enhancement. And so, on the creative side, we've also released a brand new application called Express.
Yeah.
And so on creativity, when we talk about creativity for all, we think AI will just enable that to happen because you can now take that idea that's in your head and create it.
And the fear that this is going to mean the end of art, it's going to mean the end of music. How do you respond to that?
I think it's just the opposite. I think it's absolutely just the opposite, because what is going to happen right now is it's going to enable so many more people to enter the creative field. If you can draw well, you can start with a drawing, you can scan that into an Adobe product, and you can make a creation out of it, And so I'm completely convinced that just like every other piece of technology, when Photoshop came out first, people were really questioning whether that would mean the end of photography as we know it. And we know that, the story was just the opposite. Photoshop enabled millions and millions of people to, pursue this craft. And now I think it'll be billions of people. I always say when I grew up in India, it was reading, writing, and arithmetic. But now it's all
cricket.
about... And cricket, of course. That's a passion. But it's also about digital literacy. And so I think on the creative side, AI is going to be this massive ability for people to say, how can I create something? And even on the fly. This product that we have called Express, it allows you to do it on a mobile device. So on the creative side, I'm completely convinced that it's a massive tailwind. Same thing on the document side. We recently introduced stuff that's been done completely out of India, this new product called AI Assistant for Acrobat. And if you take a step back and think about, there are trillions of PDFs out there in the world.
Right.
If you can have a conversational interface with a PDF, give me the summary, let me ask some questions, compare this PDF with maybe 15 other PDFs that I've done. It just makes that entire engagement with your knowledge management system so much more productive. And so I think AI Assistant on that part as well is just going to make the world of information far more accessible through AI Assistant for PDF. And then on the powering digital businesses, this is enabling every business like CNBC to engage with their customers digitally and deliver personalized content. Now we can create campaigns, we can create content, we can address the content supply chain. So I'm completely convinced that AI, while I acknowledge it'll be disruptive, at the end of the day, it's going to be a massive enabler and a tailwind.
You know, since you're talking about disruption as well as the power of AI to sort of change the world as we know it today, Shantanu, you know, what is, as far as your suite of services is concerned, and you gave us a glimpse of what you've been able to do so far, and we're just talking about the starting at the initial stages as far as the AI adoption is concerned. I mean, what is the potential of what you intend to, with Adobe, do as far as AI is concerned?
When we think about AI, we have, I think, a very solid strategy about saying how do we think about data, how do we think about models, and how do we think about interfaces. The data, as you know, Adobe has a very differentiated approach. We've said we've trained our models only on data that we have complete license for. So the Firefly set of images is being, you know, so widely adopted because people recognize that we can tell them exactly how that model was trained. I think you're going to see all these new models. You know, the terminology is this multimodal large language models. And you know, these large language models are going to enable you to do things that previously you could not do. Maybe extend a video for 30 minutes without, you know, having perhaps the necessary, you know, content right up front. And then there's interfaces. And I think it's really in the interface layer where the value is, because you as a user or I as a user, yeah, we may talk about the models or the data, but at the end of the day, it's the applications that we use, the services that we use, you know, that are going to be incredible. And if you take a step back, I actually think AI finally allows us to have personalized medicine for individuals. It allows us to have a personal tutor and, you know, transform education. Similarly, in creativity, it allows you to have, you know, this assistant that's actually, you know, constantly helping you with your creation. So, I think while we're innovating across all of these spectrums, the data, the models, and the interfaces, I think you're going to see AI-first applications emerge that today is just, you know, in people's imagination.
Yeah, well, you know, I want to address the issue that you brought up as far as Firefly was concerned, because I think part of the conversations that we're having around AI today are also conversations that involve trust or the lack of it, or transparency and the lack of it. And I know that you've already clarified that you're not using user content or user data to train the models, and you've put out, in fact, just this morning, a fresh clarification on that. But where do you believe this trust deficit comes from, and how do you believe a company like yours will need to address it?
Well, first, I'm really proud of what our team has done. When you think about the content authenticity initiative, something that we pioneered, over 3,000 companies have now signed up, whether it's a camera manufacturer saying, when we create a camera picture, we will put a provenance or a nutrition label on it. You know, companies like Adobe, where in our tools, when we edit it, we'll allow you to create that digital certificate. And then, you know, people who are the publishers, the New York Times, Meta, everybody is also signed up to say, let's make sure to combat deep fakes that we have the ability to do that. I think, you know, while people understand that AI has all this power, I think it's fair to say there's some heightened sensitivity around what does this mean to me? And so, you know, that I wouldn't call it a trust deficit as much as questions about what that is. And a company like Adobe has a leadership role that we need to play, not just for ourselves with our customers, but for the industry at large. And so I think to the conversation that you were having about our terms of use, I think there were some questions, and legally everybody who looked at that understood that, you know, the content belongs to them. We're not training our models based on that. But I think perhaps in English we could have done a simpler job of clarifying it. So,
which you have today.
Which we have. And so, we've rolled it out. We are creator friendly. I mean, we have this incredible creative professional network called Behance. And there are tens of millions of people on Behance. They come, they provide their content. It serves as an incredible inspiration. The terms of that do not allow us to train it, so we haven't trained it. And so, if we don't represent the views of the creative, who will? And it's something that we take very seriously.
How do you see the regulatory environment at this point in time? I mean, there are concerns that big tech is too big and there need to be guardrails, especially when we talk about AI. Different countries are looking at AI regulation differently. I mean, for a company like yours, how do you navigate what is going on today? Because there is a fair degree of uncertainty around what will be permissible, what will be allowed, and where it will be allowed.
You're right, because of the fact that people appreciate that AI can have this incredibly profound impact on lives. But it potentially could do some harm or have some unintended consequences. And so, whether it's the sovereignty of data or whether, what these models might be used for, there's a lot of discourse that's happening in every country around the world around what this means, whether it's the US, whether it's Europe, whether it's India. And to your point, they're doing a whole bunch of things like AI acts. I think the narrative has perhaps, gone a little bit towards one or the other extreme to the conversation we had, which is either people believe this is the panacea to everything, or people believe that it's so evil that no good can come of it. And the truth clearly is somewhere in the middle. And so, I'm a firm believer that this technology is moving so quickly. They're trying to regulate it prematurely, I think will competitively put countries behind.
Speaking of delivering value and collaboration within the tech ecosystem at this point in time, what are we seeing on that front? I mean, you've been partnering with companies like NVIDIA, and I think there is a lot more openness today to want to do things together. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And I think you're seeing a lot of it. I think it's driven by two areas. One is companies like Adobe say, we have to serve our customers. So if a customer is using Microsoft Azure versus Amazon AWS, they're using chips from AMD or NVIDIA, if we don't support that and figure out how we can best serve them, we're not doing our job. So I think being dogmatic about that doesn't make sense to a company like Adobe. But on the more exciting front, when I have conversations with Jensen and we talk about the potential of what this is, you come back inspired and you say, oh my God, look at what's happening in this space. And we push them and challenge them, and they push us and challenge us. And I think that's how tech advances.
You talked about Jensen. I mean, this is the shock and awe story of the last several years, what's gone on with NVIDIA. I mean, what do you make of the kind of rise that we've seen of NVIDIA?
Well, Jensen's a, absolute legend in the industry, and having known him for decades and considering him a friend, what I would say is that his ruthless, single-minded, drive to continue to deliver innovation. I mean, he has this vision of what he wanted to do with autonomous cars, and so I think this is not a one-hit wonder for NVIDIA. I think it's, decades of consistently looking around the corner and executing against it. So I could not be more happy for him.
You said that what's driving Adobe at this point from a big picture point of view is innovation, and the fact that you continue to be driven by innovation. What are you most excited about? I mean, of course, all the AI stuff that we spoke of, but from an Adobe perspective, on the innovation front, what are you most excited about, and what do you hope to really deliver on over the next decade?
It's always hard to, pick one thing, when you have all this incredible abundance of riches of things at Adobe that they were working on, whether it's in the research lab or in the product units. But again, I think in all three of our businesses, we just have so much opportunity to impact people's life. I mean, we address billions of people use our software. And I want that to be tens of billions of people using our software in order to be able to do whatever is their task at hand, whether it's creation, whether it's documents, whether it's productivity, whether it's marketing. And so, again, those are the fields that we're passionate about.